It is my delight today to introduce our guest speaker. Mimi and Jerry Goodman arranged this talk for us as they have with Pride Sunday talks the last 2 years. Chip James, retired from 33 years as a school social worker, now works in private practice, specializing in working with LGBTQ plus kids and their grown-ups. He has been a trainer for Candle, a not-for-profit in Rockland County that works to support young people at risk and their adult allies, for the New York State Department of Health, for the National Association of Social Workers, and for the American Psychological Association. How can teachers, and by extension, parents or other responsible adults, lead age-appropriate conversations with elementary age children about gender identity and sexual orientation? So Chip, your turn.
Great, thank you so much. First of all, I'm very moved by the history and placement of your building. And I've been thinking over the past few days very frequently about the Native children who have been found in unmarked graves around Indian schools in both Canada and the United States. And it of course strikes me that that was a very precise project of removing identity and culture and a sense of self. And listening now also to all of the feverish laws being passed to control the lives of transgender and gender nonconforming young people, that while the Indian schools did it in quite visibly, the removal of history, even down to the cutting of hair, the changing of appearances, the removal of a language, the blockade of one's own words, really applies to LGBT kids. And one of the things that I've really loved to do over the years as a school social worker is to lead classroom conversations with elementary school students that get to discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity. And in 2010, the Dignity for All Students Act was signed. And it's funny that we really don't hear that much about it these days, when it really applies more than ever. But one of the great things about the Dignity for All Students Act is that it did require discussions among students and faculty about bullying. And given that there is a strong relationship between bullying and the treatment of LGBT kids by their peers and by some of their grown-ups even, that led to a way to bring this language into the classroom. And what I like to do is actually read the district policy with the class, and have them struggle with defining some of the language. And so as part of the Dignity for All Students Act, there are 11 protected classes, which is kind of silly because bullying happens in more than 11 ways. But they did list 11 protected classes, and including national origin, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, among others. So when we would get to the words sexual orientation, I would ask the class, and this is something that I advise teachers to do all the time, is to, before they correct language, first check in with the kids' actual meaning of the language, because their meaning may be very different from your understanding of the word. And you may end up getting yourself in a conversation that was not necessary. Anyway, so, and of course, some of the kids would giggle, and I would say, great, that means you're thinking about the words that I'm using, and it is completely unusual to hear in this elementary school the word sexual, and sexual orientation. And so I would ask them, what is their definition? What do they figure sexual orientation could mean? And sometimes they know, sometimes they don't know, and they make very good efforts to define that. Oh, and by the way, I getting back to the laughter or the giggling, I really like to normalize that, and say, yes, it is weird to hear this word in school, isn't it? And I would say, how many of you have heard this word before? And it's almost all of them. So it's kind of providing some language. So the way that I explain sexual orientation and gender identity for kids in elementary school is that sexual orientation has to do with who somebody likes. Do we know the difference between one like and two likes? And then of course the kids giggle and blush and they look at each other, and yes, of course we know the difference between one like and two likes. And I of course have the kids define that. What is the difference between one like and two likes? And one like is friendship and two likes is love. It's very clear, the kids know it. And once they understand that we're here to have a frank conversation about this stuff that's never talked about in school, they're very excited, and you can hear a pin drop. They're eager to have a group conversation that provides them with some basic language, and so that it provides them with a common language as well. And then we also talk about, and one of the other protected classes is gender. So, and the kids are very good at noting gender. So one thing that I'll do at the beginning when I go in for this talk is I have them look around the room, and we try to make an exhaustive list of our differences. And it's everything. And so I'll have them look around and list as many differences as they can see with their eyes. And of course, we go through the whole gamut of what they can see. And gender is one of those things. And gender is very clear. And gender identity becomes a little more confusing. And the way that I explain gender identity is that it is somebody's deeply felt sense of maleness, femaleness, or the combination of maleness and femaleness. And I explain to them that every human being is a combination of masculine traits and feminine traits. And through our life, it is one of our jobs to figure out what our mix is and how best to live our mix in the world. And that there are powers and benefits that are associated with masculinity and with femininity, and we can have all of them. I even will talk about my own mix where I say, you know, I feel pretty much in the middle. I feel very, very close to femininity, and I feel very, very close to masculinity. And that for a while in my life, that was confusing. But once I had the right words, it became much more clear. And now I'm very comfortable with my mix and how I live it in the world. Um, so, um, uh, so again, getting back to the Native American children who had their words torn from them. When we neglect to have these conversations in school, we are doing the same thing. And I have had transgender kids in the elementary school who have been told not to use the word. In other words, don't talk. It's okay that you are who you are. Just don't talk about it, because it created conflictual conversations, and conflictual conversations really for the grown-ups. The conversations the kids were having were necessary and were being held very well. I tried to lead these discussions in small groups outside of the class. Anyway, so I also remember in the middle, when Mimi and I were trying to start a middle school GSTA, Gay, Straight, Transgender Alliance. There was a lot of resistance, and it actually took an administrator's retirement to get that club finally started. But I remember when we were making posters with the handful of students that we started the club with. And one of the most beautiful posters, and these were posters to hang in the hallway to get other kids to try out joining the club. And the poster was beautiful and said in rainbow letters, "Come find your words." And that's really, really palpable and really, really important. So, and oftentimes kids get the message in school that they are not to use the word gay, and usually it's correcting some teasing or bullying that's going on. And if the appropriate uses of the word gay are not being taught simultaneously, the only message that is being given is that gay is wrong, gay is bad, don't even use the word. So that's another part of my discussion with elementary school classrooms, are not just the wrong uses of the word gay, but the correct uses of the word gay. And we practice them. And so the rule that I share with them is that the word, that gay is not a bad word. It is only bad when it's being used to harm somebody. And the reason that gay is not a bad word is because we have gay people all throughout our community. You have gay teachers in this building. You have gay counselors. You have gay doctors and nurses and priests and rabbis. And so, and I then, because I always want them to personalize the experience that I'm trying to provide for them. So then I'll ask, how many of you have a gay person in your life that you know and respect or even love? And then it's like crickets. And then all of a sudden you see somebody raise their hand. And once that first hand goes up, You see, you'll see other hands start going up. You'll even hear some people gasp because they are so surprised that they're not the only one who knows a gay person in this classroom. And then I'll have them. So can you tell me, other than who this person loves, tell me something else you know about them. So again, this is getting them to own the conversation. It's getting to identify the people in their lives, and it's getting them to associate that person with some other aspect of themselves, and not simply identify them as their by their sexual orientation or who they like. So a lot of interventions can be done in a very short time, simply by word choice and by providing very basic, clear understandings that relate to what they already know about human beings. So one of the secrets that I like to tell them, and I talk about it as a big secret, that, oh my gosh, none of us were supposed to know this. And I'll say, do you guys want to know? Do you guys want to hear the secret? And they're like, yeah. And so I have them lean in. So, and I'll have an entire class leaning forward. And I said, here it goes. There is no such thing as girl stuff and boy stuff. It's all just stuff. And all humans get to choose from all stuff. Is that clear? And they love that, because that lets everybody off the hook, and every single human being pays a price for rigid gender roles and stereotypes. So having this discussion also begins to give each individual child in that classroom explicit permission to be themselves. That not only are they given permission, but they are given a message that, in fact, they're here to be their true self. That's their reason. That's their purpose. So it's a very powerful, discussion. And I think that teachers, by and large, are really surprised to find out how much their students know about LGBTQ plus issues already. The other beauty of having these discussions as a group discussion is to correct misinformation. Because if kids are not having these discussions with us, believe me, they're having them without us. And that's where misinformation or disinformation or confusion can be propagated unnecessarily. So again, back to the teachers. Yeah, the teachers are very surprised about how sophisticated and how open their class can be about a topic that seems almost untouchable in school. So I like to model for teachers how simple these discussions can be. In fact, how simple they need to be, so that kids are leaving with a sense of clarity and a sense of comfort and a sense of understanding that can become foundational for whoever they are. So the other message that I teach them is, and again, I have them lean in, and this is after we've made an exhaustive list, and I've written all of these words on the board, all of our differences. I even explain that even identical twins are not the same. They are not identical. And then I ask why. What is it that could be different about identical twins? And then the kids are they're really savvy and they're ready for this. And they say they have different dreams, they have different desires, they have different talents, they have different likes and dislikes. So they're getting really good at this. And I say, in fact, we even, I tell them that I love to remember that the fact about snowflakes, that there are no two alike. And I remind them that that is true for all human beings as well. And so here comes the next secret information that we're not supposed to know. And are you ready? Are you really ready? Lean in. And I tell them, and he said it, and I'll tell them, this is a thought that first sounds quite twisted. It might even temporarily hurt your brain. So are you truly ready for this information? Yes, they're really ready. Lean in, and they lean in. And I say, it is the fact that we are all different which makes us the same. And I'll wait a moment, and I'll hear lots of sighs like, what? Huh? What? And I said, I told you, this is twisted. And I say, I'm going to say it again. It's the fact that we are all different, which makes us the same. And I said, so as you understand that, once you get it, I want you to put your hand up. And then you'll hear gasps, oh, and a hand goes up, oh, and a hand goes up. And it's very funny to watch. It's like popcorn, and the kids are starting to get it and their hands are going up. Then again, so that it really gets absorbed, I go around the room and I ask for volunteers to explain what they just learned in their own words. And I'll take several of them. And it's wonderful to hear them explain what they've just learned in their own words. So these are the ways that I have this conversation with classes in elementary school. I also run small groups. I have lunch groups, and I also provide support to students individually as well. So I have not been keeping an eye on time, and I just need to know how we are doing on time.
We're fine, Chip. If you want to speak a little bit longer, that'll still give some time for some responses.
Great. Okay. So I had the joy and pleasure of identifying a kid, and identifying. I should. I'm putting that in italics. Identified. I had a kid in kindergarten who I truly believed one day would come out as transgender. And this kid was having some social issues, and ended up in a group of other little boys who were having social issues. And it's not because I separate groups by gender. It just happened that there was a slew of referrals from the kindergarten, and they were all boys. So this group was not slated to be a boys group, but that's how it fell out. And so one of the things that I try to do with my groups is to really get them networking with each other and supporting one another. So if somebody's having an issue, then that issue may become part of the focus of the group. It may become the focus of the entire meeting, depending upon how the other kids are relating to it. But I would always get the kids to be problem solving for one another. So, and we would go around the table and I said, what, do you have any advice? Do you have any thoughts about what so-and-so has just shared with us? And so when this little guy was talking about being called a girl, was being teased because of the colors they favored, because of the toys they liked, because of the costumes they liked to wear. Was already in kindergarten getting flack because it's pretty normal that kindergartners some of them are just meeting other kinds of families from their own and other kinds of children than they're used to, simply by coming to school. So anyway, I get the kids problem solving with each other. So this group of boys got very used to supporting this kid. And I'll say, okay, we've got 5 minutes left and Bobby needs at least 3 good comebacks. Let's go, hands. And then the boys are brainstorming, what's a good comeback to be being called a girl, etc. So, and they became really good. They became very devoted to one another, and they became very devoted to this kid, which was wonderful to see. This child did come out as transgender in 3rd grade, and the way that they and it strikes me that it's because they found the missing word, and they had been watching America's Got Talent with their mom, and one of the performers, Brody Ray, a young male singer-songwriter, and you know, they often will do a short bio about some of the performers, particularly if they've had a difficult or interesting past. And they did do a bio of Brody Ray, and Brody Ray was assigned female at birth. And so the bio showed the child in dresses, and now you clearly see a husky bearded young man who sings beautifully, and that was the first time this kid learned about the word transgender, and that there is such a thing as being transgender. Now, I hadn't supplied that word, partly because I'm in a school, and I would wait for that word to come up. I did use that word with my principal once I really ascertained that I firmly believed this kid was one day going to identify as transgender. I met with my principal, and my principal was very supportive and had me do staff development. So there were individual, small group, classroom level, whole school level interventions that I did on this child's behalf. with the support of the principal and the staff. And one thing that I can say definitively is teachers really want to know the right way to handle these situations. And they also know that they need training, and they also need to know that they will be backed up by administration. Yeah, so I had not used the word transgender with this child until the mom called me on the first day of school and told me that the kid had come out in the middle of the summer. Yes. And when that happened, they began coming out to kids in school, on the bus, so I was doing a lot of fielding questions from other parents. Other parents had concerns, and I really used the same kind of languaging that I used with the kids to let's chop this down to something that is human and handleable, and simple. And I'm happy to say that it does not need to be a complex and overly complicated issue. And there are ways to make it very simplified, and we all benefit when this conversation is simplified.
So thank you so much, Chip. For
Yeah.
those who are viewing the video later, you can find out more about this program and our other programs at the Ethical Society at rysec.org.